So he's beating Kamala. He also signed, his blood away to the Democratic Party, which I have mixed feelings on. So let's show you what's going on with this. And remember, statuscoup.com/join. Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders has signed a loyalty pledge promising to run and govern as a Democrat if he wins the presidency in 2020, a new requirement for candidates that largely grew out of his 2016 campaign. Well, that's an understatement. They made this specifically for Bernie Sanders. They want him to it's like Game of Thrones. They want him to bend down and kneel to the king. The pledge Sanders signed was given to all active Democratic presidential campaigns last week. It affirms to the DNC chairman that they are a Democrat or a member of the Democratic Party, will accept the Democratic nomination, and will run and serve as a member of the Democratic Party. It's an issue that arose during Sanders' first presidential run, with concerns among some Democrats that the longtime independent and self-declared Democratic Socialists might run as a third-party candidate after losing the nomination to Hillary Clinton. At the same time that the party adopted the loyalty pledge for presidential candidates, it also made changes to the nominating process that were sought by Sanders and his supporters, like minimizing the role of superdelegates. The party rules state that a candidate must, quote, be a bona fide Democrat whose record of public service, accomplishment, public writings, and/or public statements affirmatively demonstrates that the candidate is faithful to the interests, welfare, and success of the Democratic Party of the United States, who subscribes to the substance, intent, and principles of the charter. Oh my God, this is awful. Basically, fall in line with what the Democratic Party stands for. And if you don't fall in line with that, you're not a Democrat. That's essentially what this says. So I'm not going to read the rest. I mean, you get the point. So I feel mixed about this. On one hand, I don't really give a shit what Bernie Sanders signs. And I don't really care if Bernie Sanders is running as a marshmallow candidate or an alien. Because frankly, this is Bernie's last hurrah, right? He's 77. So I'm not saying if the Democratic Party tries to rig the primary, because there is no if. They are. They're going to do it. They're already doing it. It might not be in the same form as last time. They might not be stupid enough to put it in their emails. They might just call and plant negative stories on Bernie Sanders. They might I'm going to be investigating, and Status Quo will investigate what's going on in these primary states. Are they trying to close down polling stations? Are they sending out disinformation through the mail? There's a lot of subtle things that altogether amount to voter suppression and ultimately fraud. So I see that Bernie Sanders is trying to play ball with the Democratic Party because he recognizes, just like I said on the last story, he needs to pluck away at least. He needs to keep his base, number one. He needs to expand his base, so get more people who never voted, more, like I said, more of those new 18-year-olds that are voting, and he's going to have to get probably 5 to 10% of the establishment vote, those people who voted for Hillary Clinton in the primaries. He also, honestly, in open primary states, he might get a lot of Republicans who, because you could vote in an open primary state, you don't have to be a Democrat. He might get Republicans that are disenchanted with Trump and vote for him. But I think he's playing ball because he recognizes that he has to endear himself in some way to the establishment. So a lot of you watching, including me, might be like, well, fuck that. Oop, demonetized. Fuck that. These people rigged the primary in 2016. They're going to rig it again. And why are you signing something that is basically bending down and taking away your leverage or rights if you're if you end up running, if they end up screwing you, sick. Well, I say to this, Bernie Sanders has been in Washington a long time. I might be wrong. He might ultimately, even if he gets rigged again, be a good boy and step aside and honor this contract. But as far as I'm concerned, when they rigged the primary, this contract that Bernie Sanders signed is null and void. He could take it, light it on fire, or stick it up somebody's butt for all I care, maybe himself. Because if they're not going to honor that, they're supposed to be neutral. I'm talking about the DNC. I'm talking about the Democratic Party led by Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. I'm talking about the media that's in bed with them. If they're not going to be neutral, if they're not going to be doing this in a fair way, if they're not going to say, you know what, we want we're going to try to have as many debates as possible. We're going to try and have in each state. Obviously, states depend on local board of elections. The governor sets rules, but I want to see who are on these board of elections in these states. Who are these governors of these states who were very in bed with Hillary Clinton? Are they campaigning for any of these other candidates? So there's a lot we have to look at. But basically, the Democratic Party has a part in this too, because if they don't honor it, and I don't expect them to, then it's null and void. He could toss it out, and I say run as an independent. And I think, honestly, if the Democratic Party tries to screw Bernie Sanders again, which I think they're going to, we live in the real world. I'm not telling fairy tales to you people. It would be nice if they didn't, but they probably will. I think Bernie Sanders needs to say, screw it. I played nice with you. I went on a tour with Tom. I went on a unity tour with Tom Perez and embarrassed, where Tom Perez was embarrassed. I've done press conferences and let Chuck Schumer sign on to bills with me. I've done my part. If you're going to screw me again, screw your pledge. I'm running as an independent. And frankly, if they screw him, I think in a three-way contest between, let's say, Bernie Sanders as an independent, Donald Trump, if Donald Trump is still president, who knows at this point, and, I don't know, throw in Beto O'Rourke, I think Bernie Sanders would win. I think Bernie Sanders is the best chance in American history for an independent candidate to win. So we have to take off our rose-colored glasses, which the viewers are smart, so many of you don't have rose-colored glasses. They are going to rig it. I mean, they're already starting. You see it through the media. You see it through the DCC, the DCCC, did a little visual Facebook post the other day saying, which candidate are you excited about? Conveniently, Bernie Sanders was left off that list. Credit to them, they had Tulsi Gabbard as an option, but Bernie Sanders was left off that list. Why is that? I mean, he's in the front of many polls, or number two, but the DCCC, which is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, they left Bernie Sanders off that. Isn't that interesting? Tom Perez, he was on, I believe, with Chris Hayes last week. He was twisting himself into a pretzel to avoid saying Bernie Sanders' name. It was painful to watch, actually. Twisting himself into knots to avoid saying Bernie Sanders' name. So it ain't if, it's when they try to rig it. Like I said, I know a lot of you are going to be unhappy with what Bernie's doing, but there is practical realities, and he does need to play ball, because the only way he's going to win that nomination is if he pulls over some of those Hillary Clinton voters. If he doesn't, he would need to bring out a record number of African Americans, a record number of millennials, and bring out a lot of new voters who didn't vote. That's not an easy thing to do. It's made easier if he gets 5 to 10% of Hillary Clinton voters, which I think is possible. Particularly, maybe not the 55 and older crowd who's, living in their little socialism bubble. Socialism equals communism, but that 40 and over crowd, he might be able, because people want to beat Donald Trump. So even if Hillary Clinton voters, that I don't think the 55 and older, but I think the 40 and older, if they think that Bernie Sanders is the best to beat him, and I think the polls, when they do more head-to-head polls, are going to show that, they will line up, and they will, quote-unquote, fall in line. Mark my words. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.